It was a cool autumn evening in the small, peaceful town of Maple Ridge, a place where everyone knew everyone, and nothing ever went wrong. But that peace shattered forever on October 12, 2018, when Sarah Carter, a 28-year-old local artist, vanished without a trace. Sarah was known for her kindness and creativity. She ran a small art studio downtown, often staying late to finish her paintings. That night, she closed up around 19:15 p.m. Security footage from a nearby cafe showed her locking the studio door, waving to a friend across the street, and heading toward her blue Honda parked a short distance away. She never made it to the car. The next morning, a jogger found Sarah's Honda parked near the old post office. The doors were locked, the keys were still in the ignition, and her purse lay untouched on the front seat. Inside, her phone was open, the screen frozen on an unsent text message that read, "Something feels off. I think someone is following me." Detectives arrived quickly. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints, no fingerprints that didn't belong to Sarah. Her friends were devastated. Her boyfriend, Evan Blake, was the first to call 911 when she didn't return home. Evan told detectives that Sarah had been anxious the past few days, claiming someone had been watching her through the windows of her studio. He said he tried to convince her it was just her imagination. But neighbors confirmed they had seen a dark SUV parked near the studio several nights that week. Its driver never identified. Detective Mark Jensen, a 15-year veteran, took the lead. "Cases like this don't just happen here," he told reporters. "Somebody knows something, but no one did." There was no trace of Sarah. No credit card used, no phone signal, no sightings. Within a week, over 50 volunteers searched the nearby woods and riverbank. They found nothing but one strange clue: a single paintbrush snapped in half, lying near the back alley of her studio. Sarah Carter had simply vanished, and for the people of Maple Ridge, it was only the beginning of a mystery that would haunt them for years. As days turned into weeks, Maple Ridge transformed from a peaceful town into a place of whispers, theories, and fear. Everyone had their version of what happened to Sarah Carter, but none of them made sense. Detective Mark Jensen set up a command post inside the town's library. He interviewed everyone who had seen Sarah that week: her coworkers, neighbors, friends, and her boyfriend Evan Blake. On the surface, Evan seemed heartbroken. He cried on television, helped organize search parties, and pleaded for Sarah's return. But something about him didn't sit right with Jensen. For one, Evan had no solid alibi for the night Sarah vanished. He said he'd been watching a movie, but phone records showed he had called Sarah's number 5 times between 9:30 and 10:15 p.m., long after she was last seen. Even stranger, one of those calls pinged from a cell tower less than a mile from her studio. When Jensen confronted him, Evan brushed it off. "I was just looking for her," he said nervously. "She told me someone was following her. I went out to check, but I didn't find anything." The townspeople grew restless. A local journalist, Rachel Monroe, began digging into Sarah's life and discovered something shocking. Just 2 weeks before she disappeared, Sarah had withdrawn $10,000 in cash from her bank account. She hadn't told anyone why. Even more curious was what Rachel found in Sarah's studio. Hidden behind one of her paintings was a small black notebook filled with strange sketches and half-written notes. One line stood out: "He knows what I did. He won't stop until I pay for it." Who was Krim? What had Sarah done? The town started to split between those who believed Evan was guilty and those who thought Sarah might have run away. Rumors spread: affairs, debts, secret projects, and even whispers about a stalker obsessed with her art. Detective Jensen, meanwhile, found a new lead. The same dark SUV that had been seen near Sarah's studio was caught on a traffic camera leaving town at 9:43 p.m., just minutes after she disappeared. The plate number was partly visible, but the name it led to would shock everyone. Detective Mark Jensen could barely sleep. Every night he replayed the evidence in his mind: the car, the phone, the unsent text, and that broken paintbrush. Nothing fit together. But the dark SUV caught on the traffic camera finally gave him something real to chase. The partial license plate led to a man named Derek Miles, a 42-year-old contractor who lived on the outskirts of Maple Ridge. Derek was known around town: quiet, hardworking, but with a short temper. He had done renovation work at Sarah's studio just a month before she disappeared. When police arrived at his property, Derek appeared calm. He admitted owning a black SUV but claimed it had been stolen the night Sarah vanished. "I filed a report," he said, handing over a copy. But when Jensen checked, the report had been filed 2 days later, after news of Sarah's disappearance broke. Jensen noticed Derek's hands were covered in small scratches: yard work. Derek explained. The detective wasn't convinced. A search of the property revealed a burned patch behind Derek's garage. Forensics later confirmed traces of melted fabric and paint residue, the same type of paint Sarah used in her studio. Still, there was no body, no weapon, no direct proof. Derek refused further questioning and hired a lawyer immediately. Meanwhile, journalist Rachel Monroe uncovered another stunning piece of the puzzle. While digging through public records, she found that Derek Miles and Sarah Carter were connected. Years earlier, Sarah had filed a restraining order against him. It had been dismissed due to insufficient evidence. Rachel brought this to Jensen, who reopened the file. The old report detailed Sarah's claims that Derek had been harassing her after she turned down a private art commission for him. She said he would show up at her studio, leave strange notes, and once even break in to steal a painting he claimed belonged to him. It was clear now, Sarah had been terrified of him. But then another twist changed everything. Detectives obtained data from Sarah's phone cloud. Among the deleted messages, they found one addressed to her boyfriend, Evan Blake, time-stamped the night before she disappeared. It read, "Came back. If anything happens to me, tell them to check the lake." The lake. A search was launched at Hollow Lake, just 5 miles from Derek Miles's property. For days, divers combed the cold, murky water. Then, on the 4th day, they found something, Sarah's necklace, tangled in weeds near the shore. But there was no body. Still, it was enough to get a warrant. Police arrested Derek Miles on suspicion of kidnapping and possible homicide. The town of Maple Ridge finally breathed a sigh of relief. They thought the nightmare was over. But behind the scenes, Detective Jensen couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He reviewed all the footage again, frame by frame, until he noticed something everyone had missed. The dark SUV leaving town at 9:43 p.m. had a passenger. The outline was faint, but it wasn't Sarah. The figure was taller, broader, unmistakably male. Who was sitting beside Derek Miles that night? If Derek was guilty, he wasn't alone. And if he wasn't, then someone else had orchestrated everything from the shadows. The arrest of Derek Miles was supposed to bring peace to Maple Ridge. For a moment it did. People stopped locking their doors, the nightly news quieted down, and the missing posters of Sarah Carter slowly disappeared from store windows. But Detective Mark Jensen couldn't rest. Something about the case still didn't add up. Derek's UV was found abandoned near Hollow Lake. Doors open, seats soaked with rain, and inside, one disturbing discovery: a photograph of Sarah, taken from outside her studio window. On the back of the photo, a handwritten note read, "She shouldn't have said no." It looked like confirmation of Derek's guilt. But the timeline didn't fit. Derek swore he hadn't left his house that night. His lawyer argued that the photo could have been planted. Then came the most chilling twist yet. Just 3 days after Derek's arrest, he vanished from his holding cell. Security footage showed him pacing at midnight. Then the feed cut out for 7 minutes. When it returned, the cell door was open and Derek was gone. The guards insisted they saw no one enter or leave. The town went into full panic. How could a man disappear from a locked police station? Detective Jensen ordered roadblocks and searched every inch of the surrounding area. Nothing. It was as if Derek Miles had vanished the same way Sarah did. Meanwhile, journalist Rachel Monroe received a mysterious package on her doorstep. Inside was a flash drive. The sender was anonymous. When she opened the files, she froze. It contained footage from Sarah's art studio taken from a hidden camera, dated weeks before her disappearance. In the video, Sarah could be seen painting late at night while talking to someone off camera. Her tone was nervous. The unseen person said, "You promised me, Sarah. You can't back out now." Rachel immediately took the footage to Jensen. He enhanced the audio. The voice was unmistakable. It wasn't Derek's. It was Evan Blake, Sarah's boyfriend. Jensen's stomach turned. Evan had played the part of the grieving lover so convincingly that no one had questioned him since the first week. But when detectives went to his apartment, he was gone. His car, wallet, and phone, all left behind. That night, another message appeared on Jensen's desk. A handwritten note in Sarah's familiar looping script. "Stop looking for me." But the handwriting analysis later showed it wasn't hers. It was forged and traced back to Evan Blake. Now, 3 people were missing. Sarah Carter, Derek Miles, and Evan Blake. And all evidence seemed to connect them in an impossible triangle of lies. Jensen and his team dug deeper into Evan's past. They discovered that he had once worked for Derek's contracting company, years before he met Sarah. Records showed multiple complaints of fraud and stolen property, and a civil case between the 2 men. It seemed their rivalry had been simmering for years. Then, one breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A fisherman at Hollow Lake reported finding an old duffel bag tangled in his net. Inside were women's clothes, several paintbrushes, and a small notebook, the same kind Sarah used to carry. Inside the notebook was a single phrase written over and over again. "He's still out there." Detective Jensen's blood ran cold. He began to suspect the unthinkable, that Sarah might still be alive, running from both men. He traced her bank withdrawals, the $10,000 she took before vanishing, and found an ATM camera image of a woman in a hooded coat. Her face wasn't fully visible, but the shape, the walk. It looked exactly like Sarah Carter. The photo was dated 2 days after her disappearance. Could it be her? If so, where was she now? And why had she gone to such lengths to disappear? The people of Maple Ridge didn't know what to believe anymore. Was Sarah a victim, a fugitive, or something even darker? Detective Jensen's gut told him the answer was close, too close. But as he got closer, he began to notice strange things: his car alarm going off at night, files moved on his desk, and a single red paint smear on his windshield. Someone was watching him now, and whoever it was didn't want the truth to come out. Detective Mark Jensen sat in his dimly lit office, staring at the photo from the ATM camera for what felt like the 100th time. The woman in the hood looked so much like Sarah Carter that his brain refused to dismiss it. If she had withdrawn money after she went missing, then maybe, just maybe, she was alive. But that idea opened 100 more questions. Where was she hiding? Why let an innocent man like Derek Miles take the blame? And why had Evan Blake vanished too? The deeper Jensen thought, the less sense it made. He pulled open Sarah's old case files again, hoping to find something, anything, that he'd missed. That's when he noticed something strange. One of Sarah's paintings, listed in her art catalog, had never been found. It was titled Reflection. According to witnesses, she had finished it just a week before disappearing. No one had seen it since. The description in her notes read, a painting of 3 faces overlapping, one real, one imagined, one hidden. Something about that line struck Jensen. 3 faces. He opened his laptop and searched for recent art sales under fake names. Hours later, he found a small gallery in another town, selling a painting that matched the description. It had been purchased in cash by a woman named Clara Evans. When Jensen ran the name through the system, he froze. The ID was fake, but the photo on the ID card was unmistakable. It was Sarah Carter. She'd been living under a new identity all along. Jensen drove 2 hours out of town to the small coastal village where the gallery was located. He didn't alert the local police. He didn't even tell his partner. Something told him this case had gone beyond protocol. It was personal now. He found the cottage easily. It was quiet, hidden behind tall hedges, the windows glowing faintly with the light of a fireplace. Jensen approached slowly, his heart pounding. When he knocked on the door, there was a long pause. Then, a familiar voice said, "Detective Jensen." The door opened. Sarah Carter stood there, alive hair, but unmistakably herself. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Jensen said, "You're supposed to be dead." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "I know." Inside the small home, Sarah told him everything. The real story that no one in Maple Ridge would ever believe. She hadn't been kidnapped. She had staged her own disappearance. Months before she vanished, she discovered something horrifying. Her boyfriend Evan Blake had been secretly recording her in her studio. He'd hidden cameras inside the vents, watching her every move. When she confronted him, he became violent. She ran to Derek Miles for help, her old friend and former contractor. But Derek had his own dark side. He was obsessed with Sarah too. When he realized she had gone to him only for protection, he threatened Evan and terrified her even more. That night, the night she disappeared, both men came to her studio arguing, accusing each other of hurting her. In the chaos, a fight broke out. Sarah grabbed a heavy object and hit Derek to protect herself. He even screamed at her to run. Panicking, she took her savings, fled town, and assumed a new identity. "I thought they'd kill each other," she whispered. "I thought if I left it would end." But it hadn't. Derek survived, and when he was arrested, he claimed innocence, not knowing Sarah had run away. When Evan vanished days later, it wasn't because he ran. It was because he found her. Sarah looked down, trembling. "He found me here. I thought he'd changed. He said he just wanted to talk. But then he tried to drag me back." Jensen's heart sank. "Where is he now?" Sarah hesitated. Then she pointed toward the fireplace. Under there, the detective froze. The air in the room turned heavy. He slowly lifted the firewood rack aside, revealing freshly disturbed cement. Sarah's voice broke. "He wouldn't stop. He said if he couldn't have me, no one could. I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted it to end." The truth hit Jensen like a wave. The entire case. The missing woman, the wrongly accused man, the vanishing boyfriend. All tied back to this moment. Sarah wasn't a victim anymore. She was the one who had ended it. He called for backup, watching as Sarah sat silently on the floor, her hands shaking. When the officers arrived and began to dig, they found Evan's remains exactly where she said. As Sarah was led away in handcuffs, she turned to Jensen. "I know what I did was wrong, but they would have killed me. I just wanted peace." Jensen didn't answer. He looked out toward the dark ocean, waves crashing in the distance. He'd solved the case, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like tragedy. Weeks later, the media called it the case that stumped the detectives. The town of Maple Ridge finally had closure, but not the kind anyone expected. Derek Miles was released from custody, broken and quiet. Sarah Carter was sentenced for manslaughter, and yet one detail continued to haunt Jensen. When forensics examined Sarah's phone, they found a video dated 2 days after Evan's death. In it, Sarah was painting again, the unfinished canvas titled Reflection. As she worked, she looked directly at the camera and whispered, "If anyone finds this, know that the truth isn't always what it seems." The screen went black. Detective Jensen never understood what she meant. But sometimes, when he drove past Hollow Lake at night, he swore he could still see the reflection of a woman standing by the water, watching him.